Gay visibility is a relatively new addition to U.S. television. Since the mid-1990s, there has been a noticeable rise in gay character representation. While this increase in representation would seem to show positive progress towards equality, the representation is criticized by the gay community. We will be focusing on the reasoning behind the rise in gay characters on television, the type of gay representation presented on television, the reasoning for these representations, the discussion of hegemony, and the differences between broadcast network representation and cable network representation. Along with discussing these topics, we will talk specifically about sexual representation in the television show Queer Eye for the Straight Guy.
Ellen DeGeneres' decision to openly admit her homosexuality marked the beginning of gay representation on television. Ellen was the star of her very own show and overnight became the most visible openly gay star. Beginning with the civil rights movements in the 1960s and supported by the famous Stonewall riots in 1969, along with other gay rights and equality initiatives, homosexuals and the rights of homosexuals were becoming more accepted than ever before. These initiatives and movements laid the foundation, and Ellen DeGeneres' decision to openly admit her homosexuality was the spark that ignited gay representation in television. In coming out, Ellen brought homosexuality further out into the open and exposed a noticeable market. While her show was canceled soon after her announcement, she paved the way for gay characters and gay TV personalities. Network executives and producers recognized a new gay market and developed programs to reach out to these potential viewers. Although the increase in gay representation seemed to be a step in the right direction, the representation of homosexuals on television was called into question.
Homosexuality can be seen in a variety of different contexts, whether it be dramas, comedies, sitcoms, or talk shows. While the variety of representation is good, homosexuals always seem to be shown in the same stereotypically offensive ways, as the butch dyke and the camp queen, the lesbian vampire and the sadistic queer, the predatory schoolmistress and the neurotic faggot. Homosexuals often conform to middle-class standards. This is done in an effort to make homosexuals and homosexuality seem more normal to heterosexual viewers. The viewers are represented with programs that exhibit safe gayness. Will and Grace is a perfect example of a program with safe gay content. While Will and Jack are both homosexuals, there is never any mention or reference to gay sexual relations. The show often focuses on the relationship of both Grace and Will as they search to find love. While it is natural to show Grace kissing a man after a date on the show, the same cannot be said about Will and his partners. This is because Will must fit into the mold of an acceptable gay character. An acceptable gay character is open about their homosexuality, but nothing else. An acceptable gay does not act flamboyant or get intimate with his partners, but rather represents a non-threatening homosexual that adheres to most middle-class heterosexual norms. Programs hesitate to move away from these safe gay characters because they are afraid doing so could scare away viewers. This ultimately leads to a false representation of the gay community, which fuels many of today's homosexual stereotypes.
When discussing sexual representation, it is important to include Dyer's discussion of hegemony and look at the difference between stereotype and social type. Hegemony is the idea that one ruling group looks to shape society according to their values, beliefs, and worldview. They see the other group or groups as inadequate and by doing so feel a sense of empowerment within themselves. Dyer states that one of the modes of doing this for gays is by casting gay relationships and characters in terms of heterosexual roles rather than those who represent homosexual ideals because they aren't thought of as suitable. The stereotypes presented are a response to the idea of social types. Social types are representations of individuals who conform with the rules of society, while stereotypes represent those individuals that are meant to be excluded. Social types are more open, creating a sense of freedom within the boundaries of what is considered to be normal. These boundaries are maintained and defined by stereotypes. Even though not all representation is the same, it is important to recognize differences between representations on broadcast networks and representations presented on cable networks.
While gay representation on broadcast networks is for the most part limited to a stereotypical character, cable television networks, especially premium networks, are beginning to create more realistic shows focusing around the gay niche. Gay representation has also made strides in the realm of reality television. On shows like The Real World, there is always at least one gay house member. This person is forced to live with all or a dominating majority of heterosexual housemates. This allows the show to contrast the actions of a gay person with the actions of heterosexual individuals. The actions of the gay individual will seem odd and almost out of place simply because it goes against the heterosexual norms of the other similar cast members. While reality shows do allow viewers to see a true-to-life representation of homosexuality, this representation is still hindered by the simple fact that the gay characters are usually heavily outnumbered. One reality show in which the ratio of homosexual characters to heterosexual characters is almost completely the opposite, however, is Queer Eye for the Straight Guy. One has to question, however, whether Queer Eye for the Straight Guy should be viewed as a valuable source of gay representation or yet another example of homosexual stereotyping.
The question of whether or not Queer Eye negatively stereotypes homosexuals is greatly debated. On one hand, the characters do seem to fit all the typical stereotypes associated with gay males. They are well-groomed, stylish, and up-to-date with culture and fashion trends. The show also establishes the rest of the characters' personality traits based around the fact that they are gay. Also, by establishing the character's gayness off the bat, the heterosexual viewer can say that they watch Queer Eye for the straight guy, not because they relate to gay culture, but rather that they find the gays in the show funny and entertaining. It is important to remember, however, that Queer Eye is a reality television show, and these characters are real individuals who do possess a great deal of knowledge and expertise within their specific professions. Possibly the most damaging stereotype presented in Queer Eye is the fact that all of the gay males seem to have achieved a great deal of financial success. It relates back to the middle-class characteristics that networks feel need to be implicated in order to ensure a sense of normalcy. It also creates the impression that all gay men are successful and does not portray any sort of economic diversity among the gay community.
The majority of people watching these shows aren't queer, and they may not even know queer people, so this might be their only way of knowing what it might mean to be queer. And so in that sense, there has to be a frame of reference, and in our culture that frame of reference is stereotyping.
Stereotypes are an unavoidable way to structure society for all. There have been great strides for gays in the media since the mid-1990s, as stated in the Further Off the Straight and Narrow. The fact that gays are now in the media is an important step in itself. The focus now must shift from actual representation to the image that is portrayed. The portrayal of gay characters still leaves a lot to be desired in terms of fair representation. It is pointless to put gays on TV if they are represented only by their stereotypes. Many current shows, for example, Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, are still viewed by members of the gay community as stereotypical and damaging. Reality TV allowed for a more realistic look into the lives and relationships of free-will homosexual individuals. Cable and premium networks are also beginning to expand into a more niche-oriented representation of gay individuals. The need for realistic representation of homosexuals on television is essential if the stereotypical assumptions associated with homosexuality are ever going to truly go away.